Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And my name is Michael Gray.
Michael Gray is with us today. Steve Lacy, normally around here, is actually having a little medical procedure done today, so he is out. Nothing too serious, so he should be back in the saddle later today.
I heard he was getting some pec implants.
Okay.
All right, then. It's going to be like that.
Yeah, well, you're becoming the Phil Thompson of this podcast. All right. So
I know,
right? So this is episode 338. And as we said at the beginning, which we haven't done yet, but we will when you hear this, we're going to talk about should my church advertise? And Michael Gray, Michael and I go back working for a church together. And we both have a lot of experience. Actually, Michael has probably much more experience when it comes to advertising, much more than I do, although I have had some over the years with the churches I've been involved with and work with. So we're going to talk about should my church advertise? And spoiler alert, we think you should, but we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like and if you should, depending on your goals and your vision and all that stuff. So that's kind of the way this is going to go here today. And by the way, we have the notes already listed on the blog. If you go to blog.streamingchurch.tv, you'll see it. It's not this week's blog, but it's like May 10th or something. It's back there in May somewhere. And so you can follow along if you're keeping score at home. So, all right. So Michael, we both kind of on the same page with this. The idea is that, should your church advertise? Well, if you've got a sign up front, I remember years ago, J. Vernon McGee, I don't know if you know who he is, but he was a guy that used to do Through the Bible. I was in radio, as you know, and so we used to run a broadcast I think it was called Through the Bible, J. Vernon McGee. And a lot of people thought, well, he's kind of traditional, but in his day, in the late 1950s, he put a sign, he had a sign that illuminated for his Baptist church. It lit up, and he got a lot of flack for that. But he did it, and so, my point is, if you're out on Facebook or you have a sign or you have a website or logo, you're probably already advertising to some degree. So, anytime you're communicating, you're advertising something. And I would say right off the bat, and I'm going to turn this over to you, Michael, for a little bit here, but, you can be a biblical church and use marketing tools. I believe that. And if you look at Jesus and the disciples, they were out and they were marketing. I know that sounds kind of, I don't know, maybe sounds too, I know it sounds a little radical, but I mean, they went to places where people were at. They gathered, they went to the people where places were at. In the same way with Paul and all those guys, yes. They went to places, the synagogues, the different marketplaces, I should say, and they did marketing. And so,
yes, somehow the local folks that ran the local synagogue went out and gathered everyone somehow, word of mouth mostly then.
Right.
And they came in to see the disciples. They came in to see Jesus. And so that was the marketing of their day. Yeah. We just have to apply. So what does that mean in our world today in a very digital society? How do we get in front of people and invite them to come and hear a message?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I can remember, and you're a little younger than me, but I can remember where even, if you take this in the secular field, dentists didn't advertise, doctors did not advertise, I don't know what the deal was, some moral code or something that somebody invented.
Yeah.
But
they didn't have to, for one.
Yeah, that's true.
But we live in a different world now. And so depending on where you are, if you are a little bit more remote, the chances of enough people coming by your building and seeing your lit up sign may not fill your seats.
Yeah, absolutely. So my own experience with this started probably with a church here in town that I was a part of when it first started. It's called The Bridge now. It was Tucson Community Church. before that.
The Cool Church.
Yeah, it was called the Cool Church. That was its nickname. And so David McAllister started buying. There was this little thing called a little shopper, and I don't know if they still even have them, but they would get in people's mailboxes. Dandy Dime, Little Shopper, little publications that were, you would get in your mailbox. They would just ship them out for free, and you could look at things. Well, he decided he would buy a front page ad or a back page ad, so that when people threw it on their coffee table, it would be there. The advertisement for the church would be there. He didn't want to do anything inside the magazine.
Yeah, sure.
But he would do it front or back. So, and that's, we went from 40 people to 500 people basically using that. And then he went on to do TV ads and he does billboards.
Yeah, TV, radio, and Google click ads for sure.
So when I was at your church, Alive, when I was on staff there in the 90s, we did some postcards, and we did these I think outreach marketing, which I think still exists, does some really nice looking postcards, and we use those. We didn't get a lot of response for those, but we got some. And then when I went out to and we did some advertising on radio. And then when I actually started a church in Kansas, there was this building that we had. There was a church that was there before. It had 4 families. I started to use the postcard thing, and it really worked for us. We were in a small town, about 16,000. So I would use postcards with really nice images on the front. One of them was a dog licking some girl's face, big old ugly pug or something, licking a girl's face. And it said on the postcard, "We're kind of like this, only not as sloppy," and the idea was, hey, you want to come and be loved and be, that kind of a thing. We would do that. And then the church didn't really have a good sign. We were right off the interstate, but we were down the hill a little bit. So I ended up getting a sign. I ended up working a trade deal out with somebody that did billboards, and we ended up getting a sign that came up. So you could, when you drove by the interstate, you could see Legacy Community Church. You could see the sign. So, and I did radio and I did a lot of things. So anyhow, I'm rambling on here. So shall we talk about some of these bullet points in the notes here?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Ways to engage in marketing and outreach. So let's jump on the first one here, Michael. Word of mouth. Word of mouth is that's marketing. Word of mouth.
Yeah. Well, we already said that's what they did in Jesus' time, and to ignore that would be in the marketing world today. They would call that the testimonial. Which is the most valued, the 100%, 80% of the time, it's more effective than anything else.
That is true.
The testimonial of, "Hey man, I had a great experience at my church. You should check it out." Or however that invite happens, that's more powerful than all the digital paper mailings, whatever.
Yeah, that's so true.
But combined, with all of that, it's even then exponential.
Yeah, when I think of word of mouth, and of course, as you know, I was in broadcasting for a long time, Christian broadcasting. We would bring people in to testify of their experience with a business, because we did advertising with this Christian station. And I was just watching there was just a TV ad. This is, it's a political year here. And so one of our senator that's running, there's an ad running right now that this guy business needed some help. And so the senator we have happens to be a Democrat, but this guy was a Republican, this business guy. And he goes, we needed help during the pandemic and we couldn't get through the red tape. So we called so-and-so's office, and I was a Republican, so I didn't know what to think because he's a Democrat. And, and of course the story goes, "Oh, he really helped me and we're really happy with him and we're going to vote for him now." So that's a testimony, a word of mouth testimony. Yeah. And I think that's a very important point. If your leadership team needs to be teaching that, sharing that idea, they need to be doing it. They need to be doing it too.
So one of the best marketers, and give me a minute and I'll think of his name. So here's their strategy as a church. So number one, There are certain times of year that are better for marketing for people who are thinking about coming to church. 3 times a year, maybe 4, Easter, Mother's Day, back to school, and the New Year. It's when people are thinking, I need to get myself and my family straightened out and get into church. So if you're going to begin marketing, pick one of those, the biggest being back to school and the New Year. I know you'd think Easter, but it really, people are in the mindset. They're thinking, man, I gotta get my church on. I gotta, discover who God is, or whatever that is. People are thinking that in high volumes. So his strategy, and we adopted that, is we're gonna do a email campaign. We're gonna do a Facebook ads and Google ads, and now I would add to that LinkedIn ads, and then we're going to provide a little card to all of our people, and we're going to say, hey, hand these out to your friends and then invite them to our big weekend. So what happens is their friends see the ads, and so they see it 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times. So by the time somebody hands them a card and said, hey man, I'd like to invite you to this, they've already seen an ad for it multiple times. This is just really good, successful local marketing.
Synergy, right?
The businesses have been doing for years. So you combine everything so that by the time I hand you a card, the pump is primed, and it's even easier for you to say, sure, why not? It sounds interesting. I'll check it out. So within those peaks, that strategy, and you don't have to do the ones I said. If you can fly an airplane with a big giant sign and 100,000 people are going to see it, then go for it. I mean,
there you go. Yeah.
One of my other, I don't want to go on too long here. You get me going on this, and I could take hours. But one of my favorite books is Purple Cow. And the idea of that is, no matter what you're doing, get the temperature of the local market, find out what everybody else is doing, and do something else. So to an extent, before the pandemic, there was a small opportunity window there to do direct mail that was effective. But the pandemic and people have just obliterated that in a short period of time. So I would say that would not be a purple cow. That is one that everyone is doing. You have to do some that are successful, but whatever it is, fill in the blank. What are some other ways, Phil, that you would market a local church?
Well, I think you hit on a lot of those things. I think that, and the Purple Cow, that's a great book. Seth Godin,
Seth Godin,
it wrote that, and he's got a lot of good stuff out there. I think when you're engaging with people in marketing, it's just so important to try to find something that you just said. It might be a little different, might be something that stands out. So it just depends on what's going on in your market. I mean, there's things I've listed in the notes here, launching off of word of mouth, testimonies. We always hit this really hard, but I think it's so true. We just talked to Paul Steinbruck last week on this podcast. They're with a website company called ourchurch.com. But your website is kind of part of marketing, because if you've got the word out there, you need to have your website on there, on whatever you're sending out, whatever material you've got out there, whether it's mailers or on Facebook or whatever. So when people go to your website, they need to be able to see something that is very clear, not cluttered, as you and I have done podcasts and webinars before, something
clear and not cluttered. I love what you're saying there.
Yeah, clear and not cluttered, and probably a link on there that says plan your visit. which helps people get a
absolutely.
good understanding, you know. So church websites, you should always be looking at your church website.
Yes.
Just even a different set of eyes on a
reach out to Paul's group and have them assess your website. Have some thick skin though, because they're going to be honest with you. And because they want you to be successful. We want you to be successful. We will review your website. Just don't be offended, because some of them are cluttered and look like government websites. So I'm just saying.
Right. Yeah, it's sad. So and by the way, that's, you know, getting off track here a little bit, but you know, part of what I think separates us as a company, because I was just going to talk about live streaming as part of advertising. We're a streaming company. We're a streaming company, but we all have experience with our churches in lots of different hats and capacities. And so when we suggest things, we want it for your benefit. You know, we're talking about this subject of advertising. You know, we want it to benefit you. Whatever works for you works. And so, so your website, your live streaming. If you're not doing live streaming, you should at least have some video on there and have it different places where people can get an idea who you are and what you do and how your style of music is, your style of worship, your style of preaching, because not every church is for everybody, you know. And so that's part of advertising, I think.
I would say that's where your recordings, your archive is incredibly important because it allows people to sample your service in a way that helps them pre-qualify whether you're the kind of church that fits their style. There's no right style. Everybody's different. There's 30 wonderful flavors in the kinds of churches that are out there. And there's somebody that loves your flavor, whatever, you know, they just love the way you do church. But if you don't show them, because the first thing they're going to do is take their phone or their computer and they're going to say, church near me or something along those lines. And then videos and other things will pop up and they'll click and say, ooh, that's kind of cool. I like that singer. I like that pastor. Or they pre-qualify and say, I don't like that, which is fine. It just saves that uncomfortable experience for both of going to a church that doesn't fit you.
I was visiting with a family last night, a really good friend of mine, and their unfortunately it was a tragic visit because their daughter took her own life last weekend. And but I've known this family for years, and the church that we used to be a part of years ago, you know, we were kind of talking about it. We got on talking about some of the people and stuff. And I remember thinking after I came home, I thought, you know, that style of worship was not something, I was very critical of it because it was kind of a loosey-goosey. They started whenever they kind of wanted to start, and they went as long as they wanted. But then I got to thinking, well, you know, and I always speak against that. I always say when we do these podcasts, you know, start on time, do this, do that. But then I got thinking, you know, for that type of, for those kind of people, not kind of people, but for those people that enjoy that style, that's what they liked. they like to kind of, not a real structured deal, you know. And so there's people that like that. And so I've done a lot of podcasts and written a lot of blogs here over the years about how, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you know, I think you should, but then again, that's not always for everybody. And
no, there's always somebody like you that likes an unstructured service. So do it that way then. Or whatever way that is. It's
I think
you know, I like a service a certain way. I mean, we all have there's I'm trying to remember which pastor said this one. It may be our former pastor. We all fall in love with the kind of church where we met Jesus. So whatever that is, that's the only way to do church. You can only do church that way, and we fall in love with that idea. And then we chase that for the rest of our lives. So whatever that is, you know, for you, then recreate that for somebody else that's what they love. They fell in love with it and they want to do it again.
Yeah, it's a concept. So, all right. So getting back on the trail here, you know, word of mouth, church website, really keep an eye on that when it comes to your advertising, your live streaming, your archives, your video archives, social media. We've beaten this horse quite a bit over the years. But the only thing I would say, and you would say this too with social media, is that, you're going to do social media, really try to make sure you interact with people. And don't just post your service times or your church.
Supposed to be relational.
Yeah, it should be relational.
It's not another publishing channel. It's a two-way communication, and it's relational. Enough said.
Yeah, that's why it's social. That's why it's supposed to be social, right? Social connecting. So just keep that in mind. It's a great way to advertise, but it needs to be not just putting a message out there, but really connecting with people and responding. Paid online advertising. You touched on that earlier. The nice thing about Google and Facebook, if you're going to go that direction, is that you can target, who you're trying to reach. You can, for the most part, target that audience.
You can take an ad message. Maybe it's a clip. I didn't say this earlier when we talked about archive and streaming. Not very many churches do this well. And it's a great opportunity. Take the funny thing that pastor said, or the really serious thing that he said in a couple of minutes, clip that out of the recording, and then use that as a promotional tool. So do that every week, and people will get a flavor for your pastor and what he's like, and they will love it, and they will come to your church if you put it out on social media and with your paid advertising. So we had our pastor is a pretty goofy pastor, the pastor we both work for. And so we had definitely an outtakes of him doing some really dumb things on stage that were super funny, and always got a ton of traction putting that stuff out, as well as the humorous things he said and the serious things he said. But using those tools then as the ammunition for your paid advertising can draw a lot of attention. And then, always again, reach back to the purple cow and advertise where other people aren't. But within those paid advertising, you can take your church on a map and draw a circle of 5, 10, or 20 miles around your building and say, I only want to advertise there. And here's the message I want to send. And it'll only advertise to people right around your church who are close enough to drive and come see you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other one, again, we've touched on during this discussion is what you might call the traditional marketing, direct mailing, which I mentioned, billboards, even television has its place, and radio. So all that stuff is depending on your market and depending on what might work for you. There are some things I think probably as we talk about this stuff, and I've got this here in the blog as I look at my own notes in the blog here. Some of this stuff can be a little bit overwhelming, especially when you talk about editing a clip, I got to do more work here, So how do you go about that? And my opinion is you don't do it all on your own. You assemble a team of people. That can help,
And sometimes you pay somebody. Because wasting your time, if your skill is a brilliant orator and spending 20 hours a week prepping for your sermon is what serves your organization best, then pay somebody to advertise for you. There's no right or wrong to that. It's smart business, no matter what business it is, to only do what you do best for the business, and then contract or volunteer. If you got a great volunteer, that's good too.
I think that's real important. And I think when you say, possibly hire somebody to do this, there's lots of people out there that will do this freelancing, and you need to see it as an investment. You really need to see that, okay, I'm going to pay this person to help us accomplish our goals here. You need to define your audience. You need to set your goals. You need to set a budget. You need to really set up what your message is going to be. And then, you should also, and we talk a lot about this, but it's so important. If you're going to go this direction when it comes to advertising in some form, you need to have a follow-up team. Because if you do have people coming, You know, people do respond. You're throwing your money out the window if nobody's there to connect with these people and follow up, right?
If they don't have a good experience, so they don't feel welcome, and then you don't follow up with them, then yes, you did flush your money.
Yeah. So all those things, you know, it can be overwhelming, but I think that if you have a team, and especially if you get somebody that's an expert, there's people out there who will do that stuff. We're going to talk to an expert next week, probably not on here, but as a company, we're going to probably talk with Kenny Jong. We've had Kenny on here before. Sure. We're going to talk to Kenny about some of the things.
Brilliant.
Some of the things we got going on with not just streaming video, but My Church Daily and those things. And so all that stuff.
And a new rollout coming up.
Yeah, viral stream share. Yeah,
man, that's going to be that's going to be a game changer for streaming and getting the message in front of people who never saw your live stream before.
Yeah, absolutely. So as always, you know, we're here to help. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff or some feedback on it, maybe you think we're just out to lunch here.
Maybe. We probably are sometimes.
Well, I mentioned J. Vernon McGee. I don't know why I mentioned J. Vernon. I don't know if anybody even knows who he is, but we listen. You know, he had his thing on for years. He's on all these markets and radio, and of course, I spent 20 years in it. But I remember he made a comment one time, and speaking about different styles of worship. You know, he was a Baptist, but he goes, those charismatics, quite frankly, I think they're out to lunch. But you know, so if you think we're out to lunch, we're fine. We'd love to hear about it. You know, we'd be happy to get your feedback on this. So just send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. And look, if we can help you, and Michael here has lots of experience.
Man, I'd love to help you understand marketing better so that you can really tap into people in your market coming to your church.
Yeah. He has a ton of experience.
And that's free advice. Nobody's paying me to do that.
Yeah. Well, you know, maybe they should. But anyhow, so that's it, folks. So speaking of marketing, hey, if you want to check things out, check out mychurchdaily.com. That's one of our products, and we talk about that. It's a great way to get on Amazon Echo devices, smart speaker devices, better known as Alexa. And you could have a flash briefing, daily flash briefing that if you don't know much about that, just Google daily flash briefing on Alexa. And we actually have a tool that you could use to do some audio clips, upload it. We make it very simple, and just go to mychurchdaily.com and you can check it out. There's even a free trial. So do that. All right, Michael, thank you very much for this. This has been very helpful. Are you still with me? I think he's gone. Oh, there you go. That's all right.
Something pinged over here and said, I need help. All right. Somebody needs marketing help already.
All right. Well, there you go. All right. So, Michael, thanks again. I hope you have
always a pleasure.
And thank you, folks, for listening to another episode of the Church Solutions Podcast. By all means, subscribe to us, and you'll never miss an episode. Why would you want to miss it? So subscribe to Church Solutions Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. I'm Phil Thompson. For Steve Lacy, who's not here today, take care of yourselves. We'll catch you again next time. Adios.